Ever wonder what secrets lurk behind a government-funded nutrition show that featured NASA astronauts, mystery basement clubhouses, and a football stadium opening? From impossible global adventures shot entirely in Michigan to comic books that sold 7 million copies, this USDA-produced series hid bizarre production stories beneath its wholesome surface. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Mulligan's Stew. Fact 1. The show's double name origin. The title Mulligan's Stew wasn't just a random choice for this 1972 nutrition education series. It actually served two clever purposes at once. On the surface level, the name referenced the traditional hobo dish called Mulligan stew, which was made by throwing together whatever random ingredients were available into one pot, perfectly symbolizing the show's message about using diverse foods to create nutritious meals. But there was a hidden second meaning that only insiders would catch. The initials MS deliberately stood for Michigan State, honoring the show's primary production partner, Michigan State University, which provided crucial support, facilities, and expertise throughout the filming process. This dual meaning reflected both the show's educational mission about flexible, resourceful cooking and its deep institutional roots in Michigan's academic community, making it a surprisingly sophisticated bit of wordplay for a government-funded children's program about nutrition. Fact 2. Spartan Stadium's unexpected cameo. The opening sequence of Mulligan's Stew featured footage filmed inside Spartan Stadium, Michigan State University's massive football venue, creating one of the strangest location choices in educational television history. Picture this: a show designed to teach children about healthy eating and proper nutrition decided to launch each episode with imagery from a stadium built specifically for intense, physically violent collegiate football games. The juxtaposition was almost surreal. A venue where thousands gathered to watch athletes collide at full speed became the backdrop for a gentle program about vitamins, balanced meals, and good dietary habits. The producers likely chose this location because of their partnership with Michigan State University and the stadium's availability during off-season periods. But the contrast between the aggressive sport the venue was designed for and the wholesome nutritional education it was now representing created an unintentionally bizarre visual statement that kicked off every episode. Fact 3. Global Adventures, Michigan Reality. Mulligan's Stew promised young viewers exciting nutritional adventures spanning the entire globe. But the reality behind the cameras was far more modest and geographically confined. Nearly every single scene in the series was filmed within a short distance of Lansing, Michigan, meaning that what appeared on screen as exotic international locations were actually just cleverly disguised local tostitos, spots around the Michigan capital region. The producers became masters of creative deception, using camera angles, minimal set dressing, and strategic framing to transform ordinary Michigan buildings, streets, and landscapes into convincing stand-ins for far-flung destinations around the world. This geographic sleight of hand was driven entirely by the production's extremely limited budget, which simply couldn't afford actual travel to multiple countries or even multiple states. The result was a show that talked about global nutrition and cultural food traditions while never actually leaving the Midwest, creating an amusing disconnect between the show's ambitious educational scope and its shoestring budget production reality. Fact 4. The NASA Connection episode. In a truly unusual crossover between nutrition education and space exploration, one complete episode of Mulligan's Stew was filmed on location at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, during the height of the Apollo program era. This made the series one of the only children's nutrition programs in television history to gain access to an active NASA facility where real astronauts trained and mission control operated. The episode likely focused on the specialized nutritional needs of astronauts and the science behind space food, creating an unexpected bridge between healthy eating habits for everyday kids and the extreme dietary requirements of space travel. Getting permission to film inside a working NASA facility was no small feat, especially during the early 1970s when security around space program operations remained tight following the intense Cold War competition and the recent moon landings. The fact that a low-budget USDA-funded educational show managed to secure this location access suggests either impressive bureaucratic connections between government agencies or simply fortunate timing when NASA was eager to promote public interest in space science and astronaut training. Fact 5. The secret brownstone. Headquarters. The kids' clubhouse headquarters in Mulligan Stew was set in a brownstone apartment basement. But this was no ordinary basement rec room. It was an improbably elaborate facility that stretched the bounds of believability even for a children's show. The set designers crammed this underground space with an extensive array of rooms and equipment that would make even a professional facility envious. A fully functional kitchen for cooking experiments, a shortwave radio station for international communications, a complete home gym with exercise equipment, a working laboratory with scientific instruments, and even a dedicated rehearsal stage for the kids' band performances. Any real parent watching the show would immediately recognize the absurdity of children having access to such a sophisticated, multi-purpose facility in someone's basement. The overstuffed headquarters likely reflected the show's need to film multiple types of educational segments: cooking demonstrations, fitness activities, science experiments, and musical performances, all within a limited number of available sets due to budget constraints. But the result was a fantastical space that bore no resemblance to any actual kids' hangout spot in 1972. America. Fact 6. Washington, D.C. production start. Although Mulligan Stew became strongly associated with Michigan State University and Lansing area locations, the production actually began its life in a completely different location: Washington, D.C. Filming started in the nation's capital in 1971, a full year before the series officially premiered in October of 1972, giving the show unexpected ties to Washington long before it moved to its Michigan production base. This Washington, D.C. connection made sense, given that the show was funded by the United States Department of Agriculture, a federal agency headquartered in the capital, and the early production work likely involved filming government officials, securing departmental approvals, and establishing the show's educational framework with USDA nutritionists and policymakers. The transition from Washington production to Michigan filming represented a shift from the show's bureaucratic origins to its more practical, on-the-ground educational mission. But those early DC shoots remained an important part of the show's creation story that most viewers never knew about. Fact 7. The National 4-H Center premiere. When Mulligan Stew held its official premiere on October 4, 1972, the producers deliberately chose an unconventional venue that had nothing to do with traditional television or theatrical exhibition. Instead of premiering at a TV studio, movie theater, or broadcasting facility, the show debuted at the National 4-H Center in Washington, D.C., specifically during National 4-H Week, creating a direct connection between the nutrition education series and America's largest youth development organization. The 4-H Center, dedicated to training young people in agriculture, science, and healthy living, provided the perfect thematic match for a show about nutrition and wellness, even if it meant the premiere happened far away from the entertainment industry centers of New York or Los Angeles. This premiere choice reflected the show's unique identity as government-funded educational content rather than commercial entertainment, with the producers prioritizing an audience of youth educators, 4-H leaders, and agricultural extension agents over media critics or television industry executives, setting the tone for how Mulligan Stew would position itself as a serious educational tool rather than just another kids' show. Fact 8. The USDA Motion Picture Service. Mulligan Stew was produced by an obscure government entity that most Americans had never heard of: the USDA Motion Picture Service, a specialized film production unit buried deep within the United States Department of Agriculture's bureaucratic structure. This little-known service had been quietly creating educational films and propaganda content for the federal government for decades before anyone decided to point their cameras at a children's television series about nutrition. The Motion Picture Service's typical output consisted of dry agricultural instructional films for farmers, food safety training videos for industry workers, and promotional content showcasing USDA programs. making the jump to producing a multi-episode children's entertainment series a dramatic departure from their usual work. The unit operated with government efficiency and government budgets, which explains both the show's educational rigor and its severe financial limitations. Having a USDA film production team create children's television meant the series carried the distinctive aesthetic of government educational content from that era. Earnest, straightforward, and focused on information delivery rather than entertainment value, giving Mulligan Stew a unique visual and narrative style that set it apart from commercially produced children's programming. Fact 9. WQED Pittsburgh Director's Background. The director of Mulligan Stew, Ira Klugerman, came to the project with impressive credentials from one of public television's most respected stations, WQED in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the same station that produced Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. This connection meant that Klugerman brought with him the distinctive educational television aesthetic that WQED had pioneered. A gentle, child-centered approach that prioritized clear communication and emotional connection over flashy production values. WQED's philosophy, shaped largely by Fred Rogers himself, emphasized treating children as intelligent individuals, deserving of respect and honest, straightforward information. And these values clearly influenced how Mulligan Stew approached its nutritional education mission. Klugerman's background in Pittsburgh public television also meant he understood how to work within tight budgets while maintaining production quality, a skill that proved essential for a government-funded series with limited resources. The WQED influence can be seen throughout Mulligan Stew in its patient pacing, its refusal to talk down to young viewers, and its commitment to substance over style, creating a tonal similarity to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, even though the shows covered completely different subject matter. Fact 10. The Invisible Eye Musicians. All the music in Mulligan Stew was performed by a rock combo called The Eye, who received prominent on-screen credit for their work, but viewers never actually saw these musicians play a single note during the entire series. The band existed purely as an audio presence, creating an eerie disconnect between what audiences heard and what they saw on screen. During musical segments, the young cast members would pretend to play instruments and perform songs while the Eye's actual recordings provided the sound, but the real musicians remained completely invisible, never appearing in any footage. This arrangement was likely a practical production decision. Hiring professional musicians to record the music separately was far cheaper and more efficient than trying to teach the young actors to actually play instruments convincingly or coordinating complex live performance shoots. However, the result felt somewhat unsettling, especially for viewers who paid close attention and realized that the energetic rock music didn't quite match the kids' staged performances. The Invisible Band became a strange ghost presence haunting the show, credited but never seen, heard but never witnessed, creating one of the more peculiar production choices in an already unusual series. Fact 11. The Low-Budget Challenge. The producers of Mulligan Stew worked under such severe financial constraints that they openly acknowledged the budget limitations were a significant challenge to completing the series as envisioned. This wasn't just modest Hollywood humility. The production genuinely struggled with insufficient funding throughout the entire filming process, forcing creative compromises at every turn. The tight budget explained numerous unusual aspects of the show. Why supposedly global nutritional adventures were actually just Michigan locations dressed up with minimal props. Why the same few sets appeared repeatedly across multiple episodes. Why celebrity appearances were limited to whoever happened to be available, rather than who would be most appropriate for the content. And why the production relied so heavily on simple studio filming rather than more expensive on-location shoots. Government funding through the USDA provided enough money to get the show made, but not enough to make it with any level of production luxury or flexibility. Every dollar had to be justified and stretched as far as possible, creating a constant tension between the show's educational ambitions and its financial reality. The result was a series that often looked and felt cheaper than contemporary commercial children's programming. But the producers managed to complete their nutritional education mission despite the constraints, proving that educational value didn't necessarily require big budgets. Fact 12. Baseball legend Ted Williams. Appearance: Hall of Fame. Baseball player Ted Williams made a cameo appearance in one episode of Mulligan Stew, credited simply as Self, which created one of the stranger celebrity casting choices in educational television history. Williams, considered one of the greatest hitters in baseball history and a genuine sports legend, seems like an odd fit for a children's nutrition education show, especially since his athletic career had ended years earlier and he had no obvious connection to food science, nutrition education, or the USDA's mission. The appearance suggests last-minute casting driven more by availability and opportunity than by any strategic plan to connect Williams' sports expertise to the show's nutritional content. Perhaps Williams happened to be in the area during filming, or maybe someone involved in the production had a personal connection that made booking him possible. Or the producers simply jumped at any chance to feature a recognizable name regardless of thematic relevance. While athletes could certainly speak to the importance of nutrition for physical performance, Williams' specific expertise in baseball batting offered no clear connection to the show's educational goals about everyday healthy eating for ordinary kids, making his cameo feel like a random celebrity injection rather than a carefully planned educational moment. Fact 13. Future WKRP star's uncredited role. Richard Sanders, who would later achieve television fame playing the neurotic news director Les Nessman on the hit sitcom WKRP in Cincinnati, made an uncredited appearance somewhere in Mulligan Stew years before his breakthrough role. The appearance happened either in the main storyline or in one of the show's brief educational segments, but without prominent billing, his contribution went largely unnoticed at the time and remains difficult to pin down precisely even for researchers today. This was 1972, and Sanders was still a working actor taking whatever roles he could find, years away from the 1978 premiere of WKRP that would make him a household name. The fact that his Mulligan Stew work went uncredited suggests it was either a very small role, possibly just a day or two of filming, or that he appeared in one of the show's supplementary educational segments, rather than as a regular character in the main narrative. For viewers who later became WKRP fans, discovering Sanders' hidden presence in a government nutrition education show from the early 70s would be a delightful piece of trivia, connecting his early career struggles to his later sitcom success in an unexpected way. Fact 14. The clubhouse's mission: impossible setup. The kids' clubhouse in Mulligan Stew included a bizarre structural element that made no sense for a nutrition education show: a mysterious upstairs area from which a character named Wilbur received secret government assignments, creating an inexplicable espionage subplot in what was supposed to be a straightforward program about healthy eating. This setup was clearly paying homage to popular spy shows of that era, like Mission Impossible, where operatives received their assignments from hidden authority figures. But the decision to transplant that dramatic convention into a children's nutrition series created a tonal disconnect that must have confused young viewers. Why would a show about vitamins, balanced meals, and food groups need secret government missions delivered from a hidden upstairs room? The answer likely had to do with the show's need to create narrative momentum and give the kids exciting reasons to explore different nutritional topics. But framing their educational adventures as covert government assignments added an unnecessary layer of spy thriller theatrics to what could have been simple, curiosity-driven learning. The result was a show that couldn't quite decide if it wanted to be straightforward nutrition education or a junior spy adventure series, ultimately becoming a strange hybrid that awkwardly straddled both genres. Fact 15. The 7 Million Comic Book Mystery. The companion comic book for Mulligan Stew was printed in astonishing quantities that exceeded even the printer's capacity expectations. Over 7 million copies flooded into schools and youth organizations across the United States, creating a merchandising phenomenon almost unprecedented for an educational television series. To put that number in perspective, 7 million copies was a distribution level typically reserved for major commercial comic book franchises like Superman or Batman at their peak popularity, not for a government-funded nutrition education tie-in product. The massive print run meant that nearly every school in America likely received multiple copies. and the comic books became ubiquitous in classrooms, libraries, and 4-H clubs throughout the early and mid-1970s. The printer who took on the contract probably expected a modest educational run of perhaps a few 100,000 copies. So discovering the actual order was more than 10 times larger must have required significant scrambling to secure enough paper stock and press time. This comic book distribution strategy represented the USDA's commitment to reaching children through multiple media formats, recognizing that a comic book kids could take home and read repeatedly might have even more educational impact than television episodes they watched once. But the sheer scale of the print run remains one of the most surprising aspects of the entire Mulligan Stew project. Mulligan Stew project. Mulligan Stew project.